Hello, welcome to COS Indiana Live. There's never been a more important time in our history than now if you believe it's time to stand up and be free. Stay tuned and come back every Monday at 7 p.m. as our state director and host, Dale Parrish, present the need for self-governance. Our COS Indiana vision statement is to build a grassroots community of Hoosier citizens and legislators dedicated to the constitutional concept of self-governance. So, take it away, Dale.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Maringo Mike, for that introduction. My name is Dale Parrish. I am the State Director for Convention of States here in Indiana. I want to welcome you again to our broadcast this evening. We have a great broadcast lined up for you this evening. Of course, I say that every day, every Monday evening, every broadcast, as you know. But we do have a good broadcast lined up for you this evening. And I want to also mention before I forget it that once again, we are live streaming our broadcast through our YouTube channel, COS Indiana. So for those of you that don't utilize Facebook, we have another alternative for you now, and that's through our YouTube channel, COS Indiana. So just please be aware that that alternative exists. The segments of our broadcast, once again, the first segment will be our discussion topic segment. I always like to bring on leadership individuals from our organization here in Indiana, as well as our national group. I always try to bring on leadership individuals to introduce those to you, let you know what their duties are, what position they operate in our organization. Other times we do maybe a panel discussion on a particular topic, and that's what we're going to do tonight. It's a panel discussion. I'm going to bring very shortly be bringing on two individuals that you've seen before, Gary Harbaugh and Paul Phillips, and we're going to talk about a project going on in Convention of States called Get Out the Vote. So we'll be talking and discussing about that, and hopefully you'll learn and be advised as to what we have going on in the state right now. After the first segment, then as usual, I'll bring up my PowerPoint presentation and we'll go through some general information about resources that we have available to us here in Indiana, as well as a few numbers. Then after that segment is over, then any viewers that we have tonight that have made comments or submitted questions, which you can do through the chat section, we'll bring those up as best we can. We'll try to address those in the event that anyone has submitted any type of a comment or question. The final segment then this evening, I call it the invitation segment. We'll wrap things up. We'll wrap up the broadcast for this evening. We try to keep it at about 30 minutes if at all possible. Then I'll let you know what we have planned for next Monday evening's broadcast. And then finally invite you to join Convention of States here in Indiana. We target this broadcast to individuals, to Hoosiers here in Indiana that are not part of our organization as yet. Now, obviously, we welcome any viewer from wherever you might be located. We're broadcasting through our state Facebook page as well as on YouTube. So I know we reach people beyond Indiana, but our targeted audience is in fact those individuals here in Indiana, those Hoosiers that do not belong, are not part of our organization as yet. So we're trying to get you to join us. That's called growing the grassroots. That's what we're trying to do. So I always wind up every broadcast with the invitation to come and join us here in Indiana. Without further ado, then let's go to our first segment. And let me bring in the first gentleman to join us this evening. Where did you go? There he is. Let me unmute him. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Dale. Thanks for having me on.
There is Gary Harbaugh. Gary was on time tonight, which is very, very unusual for Gary. So that's a little bit of a private joke that we always use against Gary. So anyway, we'll let that go. Then let me then bring on our next gentleman, our next guest this evening, which would be Mr. Paul Phillips. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Dale. Hello, Gary.
Hello. Hello. How are you?
Yeah, good, good. A little audio delay there, but you seem to be okay right now. Now, let me get, that's the screen I want there. All right. Well, let's get into what our topic this evening. And what we want to talk about is what is called CTA, or Call to Action Program. And this is, why don't you guys hear some audio in the background? Or is it just me?
No, sounds fine to me.
I'm hearing a little buzzing, but hopefully that's not coming through to the audience. Anyway, this Call to Action, this is a program that we had planned to implement for as part of our 2021 strategy, but we've moved it up and implemented it right now. So Paul, why don't you explain to us just what we mean by a call to action?
Well, a call to action is when we want to activate somebody or something, typically our volunteers or others, and get them to take action, perhaps to affect some legislation that's going on, or some other issue to generate any kind of activity that might be a phone call to a legislator or an email. What we're doing right now, and I think is your next bullet point, Dale, is a call to action related to get out the vote. So what we're doing there is looking to encourage people to exercise their duty as citizens to cast a vote in this election.
All right. Yes, and that was the next topic that we were going to talk about, and that is to get out the vote. Now, this is a national program actually that Convention of States is implementing. Am I right?
Yes. What we've done is obtained a list of what are called latent voters. So people who are registered to vote who haven't voted recently, and we're having our volunteers get in touch with them and simply encourage them to exercise their right to vote.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Gary, why don't you, the mission that we have as part of this Get Out the Vote project nationwide is the Indiana mission that we are involved in, and that involves the state of Iowa. So you want to talk about that a bit, Gary, if you would, please?
Yes, Dale. Convention of States identified several hundreds of voters in the state of Iowa who were these latent voters. They're already registered to vote, but in the last 20 years or so, they have not always voted. And so using our Telepatriot program, right here on the phone, we call up and it gives us the name and the phone number for one of these latent voters. We make the call and hopefully we get an answer, or if not, we leave a voicemail. But what we are doing is we are simply encouraging these folks to get out and vote. We are a nonpartisan organization. We're not making calls for this party or that party or any ballot issues. We are simply encouraging people to exercise their franchise right because we encourage them to do so because we think it's important to maintain our constitutional rights and for freedom of speech, things like that, that they need to do by exercising and voting to make sure that elected officials have heard their voice.
Very good. And we wanted to specifically stress this point this evening, that we're not calling to ask them to vote for a particular candidate. This is strictly to encourage those voters to be sure and vote this year. That's very, very important. Now, the tool, and Gary, you kind of mentioned this just previously, but the tool we are using is called Telepatriot. You want to kind of explain how this tool works, Gary?
So this is an app that's loaded on your smartphone, and if a person has been assigned to the team to participate in this call, they will have this app on their phone. They simply touch the app. It'll bring up the name and the phone number of this latent voter, and we can initiate the call. And if somebody answers, we have a conversation. If they do not, we leave a voicemail and encourage them to vote.
Okay.
And then it goes on to the next person. So it's very easy to use. You can make many calls in an hour.
It is very slick. I will have to admit, this has been my first experience using this technology. And folks, as you know, technology is great as long as it works. So we don't know who we're calling, but well, we do know the name of the person. Actually, the number that comes up on your phone screen gives you the name of the person you're calling, and of course the phone number. And you tell the phone to go ahead and call the number. And boy, I tell you, it is very slick. I will have to admit, very, very, very easy to use. All right. Well, one of the things in the script that we use when we use the Telepatriot program and we actually get a hold of someone to talk to, we mention to them how important. Well, we also do this when we're leaving a voicemail. I should say that too. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make them aware of how important this upcoming election is. And we try to mention a few of the constitutional issues that are at stake in this upcoming election. And I thought maybe we would touch on those very briefly tonight. Paul, Gary, you guys, Paul, what would be one of the constitutional issues that you would want them to be aware of?
Well, one that comes to my mind is the Supreme Court. As you probably know, around the time of the end of this broadcast, there'll be a vote in the Senate for nominee Amy Coney Barrett. And there's been a lot going around about the Supreme Court and what might be constitutional to do and not to do. I would point out, just because something is constitutional doesn't make it good or right. But so far, both parties have behaved constitutionally. Back in 2016, when Merrick Garland was nominated by President Obama, that was his constitutional duty to nominate somebody. It was the Senate's duty to confirm or not, and they chose not to by not even considering the candidate or having a vote, which was fine with the rules. This year, President Trump has nominated Amy Coney Barrett, and within his constitutional duty, the Senate has taken up the vote, as they are allowed to do, and they're going to act on it in about 20 or 30 minutes. And then beyond that, Joe Biden has already stated that if he's elected, he's going to put together a commission to look at things like adding justices to the court, or maybe shrinking the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. All of those things are constitutional, well within the Congress's authority. The Congress has control over the court in terms of the number of justices, the jurisdiction of the court, and a number of other things, and the budget for the court. So all of those things are constitutional, but a lot of constitutional issues around the Supreme Court with this election.
Okay. Gary, you got one particular one that stands out in your mind?
Dale, I think the thing that comes to my mind overall is the idea that Convention of States is all about encouraging a culture of self-governance. And the most basic part of self-governance is knowing the issues and what this is all about in elections and making votes for the candidate of your choice. And, Paul mentioned the Supreme Court. Only the president has the right to nominate someone, but who the president nominates can be significantly influenced by how people vote. And so that, and part of our speech, the freedom of speech, is really in a way something that's on the ballot, because one party platform supports maintaining freedom of speech, another party platform thinks maybe that should be limited. And so a vote can have an influence on far more than who gets elected, but also the kinds of issues that come up for discussion in the Congress and within the administration.
Okay, good. I think one that I would mention would be would have to do with immigration and open borders, and I think that's such an important issue, maintaining the security of our country and being able to know who's coming into our country and why, rather than allowing the illegal immigration to the point that it's been in the past. So I think those are all very, very important constitutional issues. Now, we mentioned self-governance, and of course we think that the right to vote and the freedom to exercise your right to vote is so very, very important. So we have a little piece that we want to present to you this evening. This is a short video that our state communications coordinator, Ken Kashuba, put together. And as a matter of fact, Ken's going to be my guest on our next broadcast, and he's going to be I'm going to get him to talk about this particular piece. This is a trailer that Ken put together on a soldier, World War II soldier, that was killed in 1943, just got identified and has now been brought home 77 years later. His name is PFC Louis Weishaupt. Now, I'm going to play this trailer. It's only about a minute and a half, so bear with me, folks, as I go through the steps here. I'm going to have to mute everybody in order to play this. So be back with you very shortly. Hold on.
The year 2020 will go down in recent history like no other. Like me, I'm sure we're all a bit tired of things that don't really represent the fabric of our country. Last week, I had the opportunity to cover a story that reminded me of what America is, who Americans are. A story of a 20-year-old Marine who gave his life for his country and was listed as missing in action for 77 years. PFC Louis Weishaupt was miraculously identified in 2019 and returned to his homeland in Richmond, Indiana. As I covered the processional from Indianapolis down US 40, Veterans Memorial Highway, I was reminded of the American spirit, as young and old alike gathered and stood to show their respect for someone they never knew, to thank him for his service, to give them the freedom they now enjoy. It was a refreshing sight, one that renewed my hope and my spirit, a reprise from the non-stop battering of 2020. The full coverage will be released in the coming weeks and available on DVD. For anyone interested in obtaining a copy, more information will be forthcoming. Thank you.
Well, guys, every time I watch that, I get choked up on it. I hope that came through okay to everyone. But ladies and gentlemen, I believe that is PFC Louis Weisenhahn is the reason I'm voting this year, and all the veterans that have given their lives over the decades for this country so that we could have the freedom to exercise this right to vote. I think is just so important, and in today's world, unfortunately, these freedoms are taken for granted, or even in some cases under attack. So I think this young man is a reason to get out and vote this year. Paul, Gary, either one of you have any closing comments on this?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, Dale. PFC Lewis was an example of a patriot, and patriotism is a wonderful virtue. Sometimes people think, well, patriotism, that's just love your country. Does that mean they love the dirt and the rocks and the rivers? No. Loving your country means loving your fellow men, all of your fellow countrymen, and being willing to sacrifice your own life for the benefit of all of those people. And I think patriotism is something that we ought to honor and revere in our nation.
Very good. Agree, Gary. Paul, you got anything? Any closing comments?
Yeah, as I watched that, I think PFC Weissman answered the call to his duty to serve in protecting our country and preserving freedom. But we also have other duties as citizens, including voting, serving on jury duty, things like that. And it's an inspiration that we can do these lesser duties or these lower risk duties if he was willing to answer the call at such a young age and give his life for this country.
20 years old. Can you think back when you were 20 years old?
That's a long time ago.
A very long time ago for me, and how the world looked like at that age for me. So yeah, it's very, very touching. Like I said, I'm going to have Ken Kashuba, our state communications coordinator, the man that put this together, is going to be my guest on next Monday evening, and so we'll get some of his insights. I know I've talked to him about this, and this was a very, very moving project for him, and so I'm really anxious to share his thoughts and feelings about this with everyone. So with that, folks, that'll be it for this first segment tonight. We've gone over time, so I'll say good night for right now to Paul and Gary. Thanks, guys, for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there we got those. Got them back in the lobby. So I'm due to going over time on this first segment, which I hope you think it was worth it. I certainly feel like it was worth it. But I'm going to jump on to then the third segment, which is recognizing viewers, and we do have a couple that well, actually, it's one person that's kind of submitted a couple comments to us, and this is one of our region captains, Richard Loken. I believe our U.S. Constitution is on the ballot, and I think, Richard, I would agree with you. The whole Constitution really is on the ballot. And Richard also indicated that as far as the Supreme Court, that Congress can't put a limit on the number of seats in the Supreme Court. So that's very, very, as Paul mentioned, that's one of the constitutional issues that we believe is on the ballot in this election. So, Richard, thanks for your comments this evening. So let's get then to the final segment. We'll get things wrapped up this evening. I want to just mention that again, that on our next broadcast, which will be a week from tonight, Monday evening, which will be the 26th of October, I'm going to have as my guest Ken Kashuba, our state communications coordinator, the gentleman that put together this video that we watched this evening. Ken, of course, does other things for us as communications coordinator, but he is a videographer by trade. Ken's retired right now, but he still does video projects from time to time to bring in some extra income. But this was a project that he took on, and I think it's very, very touching. I'm a veteran, so I kind of relate to this in some respects, but I've watched the full version. The full version is about 30 minutes long, and you get to see the procession, the people that gathered. You get to see the funeral service, and it was a wonderful service. The chaplain that delivered the message at the funeral did an outstanding job. So I would encourage you to contact Ken, and we'll be giving his contact information out again on the next broadcast. But I would encourage you to get the full version from him, and I would encourage you also to have some tissues available, because it certainly got to me emotionally. Once again, folks, I just think that young men like this, like Lewis, that gave his life, and I'm not sure that Lewis knew all that what he was doing at the time. He was only 20 years old in a foreign land. He was doing what he thought was his duty, and it was his duty. And I just, so when I see men and women like him, when I see what goes on today and some of the attitudes towards men and women like that, and the respect that's shown as well as not shown, it just really, really makes me very, very angry to see that happen in our country. So I honor and hold very, very high respect for these individuals. So I want to close once again with a favorite quote, and that is from our president, Mark Meckler. The question facing us is a two-word question in this country right now, and it's very simply, it's not what should we do. The question is very simply, who decides? And it all comes back to we the people. We the people getting involved, and this is the self-governance thing again, getting involved in not only our federal government, but state, county, city, local, community. Get involved, and because that's what self-governance is all about. It's a constitutional right. And if you want to help us promote this and help us achieve this, then go to our national website, conventionofstates.com, open an account, sign the petition, and that makes you a supporter of Convention of States. And that's an important key step right there. If you want to get further involved, click on the menu selection, take action, scroll down to where it says become a leader, and look at the volunteer opportunities that we have for you here. So we would love to have your involvement in our organization here in Indiana. In the meantime, put us on your calendar for next Monday evening. And just remember, we the people, and please, please exercise your constitutional right to vote this year in the upcoming election. It's very, very important. A lot at stake. So with that, folks, I'll say good night to everyone. Thank you for tuning in this evening, and look forward to seeing you next Monday evening, 7 p.m. Good night, everyone.